Mobile games. Most of them are awful. Gone are the days of Flappy Bird and Plants vs. Zombies where mobile games could be just as good and fun as playing a game in the arcade or on a console. Nowadays, mobile games are known for being one of three things. 1. Extremely boring and cookie cutter with almost no effort put in. 2. Borderline porn. Or 3. So reliant on ads and in-game currency that the game is basically just pay to win. But recently, a friend brought to my attention a mobile game that piqued my interest. A game by Disney Japan called Twisted Wonderland. Not only was the game completely ad-free, but it was also pretty generous with the various in-game currencies. And the concept, at first glance, seemed to be a combination between Harry Potter and Descendants, two film series I was a very big fan of in my childhood. That friend then lent me their copy of the manga version of the game's prologue and first main storybook, and after reading it, I found myself really wanting to play the actual game. I figured I'd probably play through the first book and then get tired of the game. However, I am now about a third of the way through the game's fifth main storybook, and my obsession with this game borders on a fucking addiction. A majority of the game is a visual novel from the first-person perspective of you, the player, with several minigame and combat levels sprinkled throughout. This video will mostly be about the story of the game's prologue, and if I feel like it, I will continue making videos on the rest of the story as I complete them, as well as some of the game's events. Now, without further ado, let's jump into the prologue book of Twisted Wonderland. Welcome to the villain's world. The game starts with the player waking up in a coffin with no possessions on him and no memory of how we got there. The lid to the coffin is forced open and we meet this little guy here whose name is Grim. Now Grim exists to do one of two things: eat tuna and cause problems, and as we can currently see, he's not holding any cans of tuna, so he demands we give him our robes so he can become a student at this strange school we found ourselves in. And when we aren't cooperative, he immediately becomes like my little brother when he was 4, that is to say, he resorts to arson. He chases us throughout the school before this plague doctor looking motherfucker by the name of Crowley saves us. He's the head mage and he assumes we're just a disoriented student, so he drags us back to the room we woke up in, where a full-blown ceremony is now happening. The player is the last to be sorted into one of the 7 houses, and when we step up to the talking mirror to get sorted, it just says we have no magical ability and we don't belong anywhere.
You serve zero purpose. You should kill yourself now and give somebody else a piece of that oxygen and ozone layer that's covered up so that we can breathe inside this blue trapped bubble. Because what are you here for?
Grim hears this and demands the player's seat in the school, and this is where I have to question his logic. You see, we learn later that monsters like Grim are not allowed at Night Raven College, because apparently Twisted Wonderland still practices segregation. So did he really think no one would notice him for 4 full school years if he was just wearing the student robes? Anyways, he tries to prove his power the same way most world governments do, by setting absolutely everything on fire. 2 students decide to chase him down in our first minigame level, and while both of these characters do have names, neither of them are story important to the prologue, so for now, they're Twink 1 and Twink 2. Anyways, after catching Grim, Twink 1 uses a spell to put a magic sealing collar on Grim that won't disappear until he's off campus, which is kinda like the magic equivalent of taking someone's hearing aid and telling them you won't give it back until they're at least 100 feet away from you. Also, I'd like to point out one little nitpick that always bugs me. In this scene, we briefly see a character who is just referred to for now as Boy with a Deep Voice, yet his voice is actually more on the high-pitched side of the main cast.
やはりもしやと思って来てみたがマリウスは来ておらなんだかまた式典の知らせが届いていなかったと見える
Anyway, Crowley says he doesn't know what our home country is and decides that since we can't really leave and we have no money and aren't even from this dimension, that he's going to set us up with residence. And it's also important to note that Crowley loves to glaze himself. Like, I genuinely believe he would get himself pregnant if he could figure out a way to do that, which I'm sure DeviantArt already has for him. The residence he puts us in looks about as run down as my high school, and after he leaves, Grim breaks back in and basically demands to sleep in the house with us. We explore and find out that this new house must be owned by someone wearing a green hat and blue overalls because there are ghosts absolutely fucking everywhere. The ghosts screw with us a bit, but through the power of teamwork, you and Grim are able to get them to stop. This is when Crowley arrives, and I guess seeing the opportunity to get rid of the new mouth he has to feed, decides to also turn into a ghost and attack us. But once again, through the power of teamwork, you and Grimm are able to stop him. After this, he says that you must be a really great beast tamer, and he decides to let both you and Grimm stay on as janitors. We walk out the next morning to do some cleaning and meet this guy named Ace, who I think is deserving of his own little character introduction.
You're a cunt!
Yeah, spoilers, the interaction between Grimm and Ace we're about to have here is the one event that most problems you face in this game later on can be traced back to. Almost every single issue you have to go through in this game is either caused by this event, or you only get involved in because of this event. Anyways, Ace tells us about the 7 statues of the classic Disney villains who the game's 7 houses are based on. Those being the Queen of Hearts, Scar, Ursula, Jafar, the Evil Queen, Hades, and Maleficent. Which I find funny because this means that the Lion King and Hercules both exist in the same universe, and we all know about a certain connection between those movies that is probably actually canon to the Twisted Wonderland world. Anyway, Ace and Grimm fight, and the two end up accidentally setting the Queen of Hearts statue on fire, which Crowley sees and sentences the 3 of us to clean a shit ton of windows the next day. A task that Ace tries to skip, and then, when we find Ace, Grimm tries to skip, and then, when we finally try and get Grimm, we meet this guy named Deuce, who ends up trying to help us get Grimm, but just ends up breaking a very expensive antique chandelier. Crowley sees this and gets kinda rightfully fed up, and decides he's going to kick all 4 of us off of campus. Even though, if you've been keeping track, the player has been responsible for exactly 0% of the problems in the game so far, and yet has been punished for pretty much all of them. The condition Crowley gives us to not kick all of our asses out of the school is that we must find a mage stone, which are apparently extremely rare and hard to find nowadays, so all 4 of us end up having to leave the campus to go find them anyway, where we come across a cave that holds the first villain of the game. This guy who's seemingly based off of one of the 7 dwarves. Now, in case you haven't noticed, every character in this game is based off of a classic Disney character, aside from one which I will probably talk about in another video, but I find it funny that this is a 7 dwarves themed monster. So you'd assume that this is a monster spawned from a 7 dwarves themed mage. Except we meet all 7 of the dwarves based characters later on in the game, and all of them are clearly alive and well, so I have no idea where this monster comes from. Anyway, through the power of teamwork, you, Grimm, Deuce, and Ace are able to fight off the monster and get the mage stone. During the fight, the monster accidentally coughs up some sort of like black rock thing, which Grimm decides to promptly eat off the ground, which I can only imagine leads to the first case of Ebola in Twisted Wonderland. We go back to give the mage stone to Crowley, where he sees that our leadership did most of the heavy lifting. Oh, by the way, Crowley never expected us to succeed. He admits to our faces that he 100 intended to just expel us, and that this mission to go get a mage stone was pretty much just busy work while he did the paperwork. Because the one constant in the Twisted Wonderland universe is that Crowley is a dick. Anyway, he gives Grimm this little magic necklace thing that will basically serve as his wand throughout the game, and decides to enroll yourself and Grimm as one single student. And we end the prologue with an extremely well animated intro song, which shows off the main cast of characters we're going to meet throughout the game. It's a great way to end the first chapter of this game's story, with beautiful animation, and the song itself is really damn catchy. Like, I'm not even kidding, this has become my hype song. This is the song I listen to when I want to be in a creative or productive mood. The plot summary I gave was definitely the Cliff Notes version, and honestly, when you compare it to pretty much every other book in the game, at least the ones I've played at this point, it's pretty underwhelming. There's a reason both the manga and the anime just decided to blend this prologue in with the first actual arc of the game, but it's not a bad start. The minigames and fighting mechanics are immediately fun, and the characters already have such distinct personalities from each other. The player is a human trapped outside of their own world with no memory of where they are, and we notice as the game progresses they seem to become more and more cynical while also caring for their closest friends. Grim is a little shit who pretty much serves as comedic relief in this entire game, but he's a pretty cute mascot. Crowley is a man with a massive ego who wants to feel better about himself than he actually should. He clearly cares about how everyone else views him, and it constantly throughout the game tries to convince everyone else that he's a great head mage. Ace is a spoiled asshat with a massive ego who mostly just blames everyone else for his problems. I wish I could say he gets some sort of major character development later on, but I'm 5 books in and nah. Deuce is another character who is really interesting though. Not only is he a great foil to Ace, but there's a lot of subtext in this first prologue chapter that hints towards some of his character later on. When he tries to be helpful, he makes things worse. He's a screw-up who clearly doesn't want to be. He strives to be a top student, and also mentions his mom at one point, which we find out later is a big motivator for him. I will say one plot hole with the game that's still yet to be answered at the point of the game I'm in is why there only seem to be male mages throughout the entirety of Twisted Wonderland. And it's not like female mages don't exist, we just never see one. I mean, 4 of the great 7 in this game are literally females, 3 of which possessed some sort of magical ability, so I just find it weird that only guys seem to be magic in the Twisted Wonderland universe. But I've yapped for long enough. Let me know if you want me to cover the rest of the books or any of the specific events, but for now, I'm signing off.